Hey guys, it's Peter Scott Holmes, the Vinyl Kid of Florida, and welcome back to Behind the Grooves. Usually I would be reviewing an actual album, but today I'm not going to be. This is our tribute to a legend who we lost 35 years ago today. Mr. John Winston Lennon of the Beatles was shot to death by an evil man named Mark David Chapman on this day in 1980. So today we're just going to pay a little tribute to him, give you a little bio, and as you can see I'm playing the album Imagine right now, so we'll go from there. So it starts in 1940. England was being bombed from World War II. Meanwhile, Julia Lennon was giving birth to a little boy named John. And John's father was away at sea at his birth, so he would really never get to know his father all that well. And Julia didn't even like raising John all that much. She was having a hard time with him because his father was always away. So what happened was that Julia kind of abandoned John with his Aunt Mimi, Julia's sister, which we know as Mimi. So yes, John pretty much did grow up with his aunt, just like Amy Pond from Doctor Who. He took an interest in music at a young age, and he was indeed a rebel in school. He was a big, big rebel. And he even shoplifted a harmonica one time in a store in Lincoln, I believe. I'm not sure. But anyway, he, on July 6th, of the 1950s, he was playing with his band, the Quarrymen. I believe it was 1956 when it happened. So let's just say July 6th, 1956, which is also my birthday. John meets a guy named Paul McCartney, who helps him tune his guitar. Yes, Paul McCartney, a guy that's 2 years younger than this strange British guy in this band called the Quarrymen, is helping him tune his guitar. So he instantly thinks that Paul seems like a cool guy, and he starts to accept Paul, you know, like, as a younger guy, and Paul hangs out with the Quarrymen sometimes, and it wouldn't be for another few months until he would actually get accepted into the band as some sort of guitar player. Rhythm, lead, bass later on, but either way, Paul was a lefty, and that's what makes him iconic. Part of what it does. Actually, it really isn't, but either way, fact was then, John met another guy named George Harrison, who was much younger. He was 14 at the time. George was my age when he met John. And John was very paranoid about letting such a young kid join his band. But you know what? George got in. So then, John's art school friend, Stuart Sutcliffe, got into the Quarrymen, and he started to play guitar as well. He was the bassist. Stuart Sutcliffe was his bassist at that point. However, then he got Pete Best in, which was their drummer from 1960 to 1962. So the Quarrymen were done, and these five guys had come together to form something called the Beatles. Or the Silver Beatles, or whatever you want to call them. They were not very long-lived. They played at a jazz club called the Cavern Club in Liverpool. Stuart Sutcliffe died of a brain hemorrhage when he was 21, and Pete Best got kicked out of the band by George Martin. And all this happened within a few months. And George Martin was the Beatles' manager. When Pete Best got kicked out, Ringo Starr filled in for him. John started to write songs. He married a beautiful woman, Cynthia Powell. He gave birth to a beautiful boy, Julian Lennon, and, you know, the rest is history. In 1968, he breaks up with Cynthia when he meets some Japanese lady named Yoko Ono. The Beatles broke up in 1969, 1970, so John goes on to have a solo career and is part of the Give Peace a Chance era now, you know, and all that. He's releasing albums and all that, like Imagine in 1971, a year after the Beatles broke up. 1975, he retired because his son, Sean, was born, and he goes to be a stay-at-home dad. I'm going to turn off the music now because it gets emotional. So what happened to John? In 1980, he decided to return to music with his album Double Fantasy, which he did with Yoko, which I do not have yet, but I will soon. And he did a song called Just Like Starting Over. People loved it. The album was released in November of 1980. 3 weeks later, on the way home from a studio session or to a studio session, either way, a guy who claimed to be a fan of the Beatles, Mr. Mark David Chapman, called out, "Mr. Lennon!" He turned around, and within moments, he was walking to an ambulance, John. John was trying to get his way through paparazzi and stuff, and he was walking to a police car, to an ambulance, and then within 2 hours he would be dead, Yoko shrieking. And Sean just losing his father when he was only 5 years old, and Julian, however old he was, already pretty much fully grown. But that's our tribute to John Lennon. That was that dark day, 35 years ago today, December 8th, 1980. Yoko Ono still does music stuff, mostly screaming, but, you know, it's still something to remember John by. He is remembered today by his contribution to world peace and how much he loved people, especially his wife Yoko. And, yeah, it's really sad to think about when you see John Lennon being shot with a gun by a man. You can't really see that very much. But anyway, that's our tribute to John Lennon. Thank you for watching. He will live in our hearts forever. Subscribe, like this video, comment future suggestions. Usually there's a Behind the Grooves every Saturday, but this is just a special day, so we had to do it today. This is Peter Scott Holmes, the Vinyl Kid of Florida, signing out with Imagine by John Lennon, and I'm honoring him today as a real hero. Thank you for watching. Have a great night. Peace and love, and God bless you, John.